right, y'all, I'm about to show y'all how to make homemade bread. I'm gonna start out with really, really hot water. This is 2 cups, and I'm gonna pour that into this bowl. And I've already done a batch, so everything's messy here. And then you're gonna put 1 tablespoon of sugar in that water and dissolve it. So just stir it around with a spoon until it's dissolved. That's why you need the water to be hot, because if it's not hot, the sugar won't dissolve. Okay, and then you're gonna add 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. And I buy yeast in bulk and then just freeze it. And then I always have it on hand if I need it. Okay, and then I'm just gonna stir that around a little bit with a spoon. And then you have to wait 5 minutes for this to like poof up. And it'll start to like bubble and look like foamy. And so you have to wait about 5 minutes for it to start looking like that. All right, while that's poofing, I was gonna tell you a few things about this bread. So I am making 16 loaves because I'm using it throughout the holidays for like different meals. I'm giving it as gifts and a bunch of different things. So what I'm gonna do is put it in like a basket with like some different flavored butters, and some of the baskets I'll have like a little cutting board in there and some little things like that. Some olive oil spices to put in the olive oil to dip bread with. And this is just a very simple, like basic bread recipe. There is one I use that has like honey and whole wheat flour. It's a little bit better for you, but this one is just super easy because it has like 6 ingredients. So that makes it a lot easier. And you can, in one recipe makes 2 loaves. I've already done 1 loaf. I have it rising right now. But yeah, the plan is today to hopefully done 16 loaves. Done. But it's a very good bread. It's basic and simple, but it's very light. It's very it's not super crunchy on the outside. It's good to like just spread butter on, and it's very versatile because it's not too sweet, it's not too salty. So you can use like sweet butters on it, you can use savory butters on it. So it makes a really great gift because there's lots of different things that you can do with it. Also, the best part is it freezes really, really well. So he's washing my eggs for me, so sweet. It freezes really well. So I'll just, if I make a batch and we're only gonna eat 1 loaf, I'll freeze the other loaf, and then I'll just pull it out next week or whenever. It's just broken egg. Nope. And I'll just pull it out whenever we're ready to eat it. So that is super handy. And that's what I'm gonna do with all of these loaves that I'm making. A few of them I'm gonna give away like tomorrow, but the rest are all going in the freezer until I need them right at Christmas. Okay, so this is what you want it to look like when it's starting to foam up the yeast and poof up. It's just gonna look like that. So that's kind of what you want it to look like. You can stir it around just to make sure all of the yeast gets in the water. The next thing we're gonna add is more sugar. So you're gonna add 1/2 cup of sugar, and I'll give y'all this recipe too. You need 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and I'm using like pink Himalayan salt. I don't think it matters what kind of salt you use. Pour that in there, and then oil. I'm just using canola oil, and you need 1/4 cup of that. And then just mix that up. I'm using my KitchenAid mixer with my dough hook, and I'm just gonna mix that up a little bit, and then you're gonna start adding your flour. I'm using just basic whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour. And it says on the recipe 5 to 6 cups, and it usually ends up being about 6 cups for me. And I'll show you guys kind of what you want to look for. The consistency of the dough is really important because if it's too dry, it'll be a really dry loaf. But if it's too wet, it won't rise very well. So you have to kind of be careful with that. And once you get the hang of it though, you do it a few times, you kind of know what to look for. And this recipe is really good about explaining what to look for. So you want to add your flour really slowly. So I'm just going to do probably about a cup and a half at a time. And then let that mix up. The dough should be tacky and it should like clean the sides of the bowl, except for a small part, probably like about that big at the bottom, that you want it to still be sticking to the bowl, if that makes sense. When you get to like the 5-cup mark, you want to just start watching the dough to see what the consistency's doing, and that'll take a minute. Like, you need to make sure all the flour is incorporated and that it's been mixing for like 30 seconds or a minute before you make your decision on whether to add more flour or not. Now it's looking like it's good. It was all pulling away from the bowl, but see, as it mixes, now it's starting to stick to the bowl again, so that's why you have to kind of watch it. Okay, so definitely you're gonna need more flour. So at this point, that's probably about 5 cups that I've added. I'll probably end up adding 1 more cup. Okay, so see how it is still sticking to the sides of the bowl? So you don't want it to do that. You only want it to stick to the sides of the bowl at the very bottom. So you need to add more flour. Okay, this is what you want it to look like. It's doing a little tornado. But you see how it's staying at the bottom, like it's still sticking at the very, very bottom? That's what you want. If it's sticking still on the sides of the bowl, you need to add more flour. And then if it's not sticking at all on the bottom, then you just add a little bit of hot water, like a teaspoon at a time, until it starts to do that again. So now that I have it the right consistency, you want to knead it in the mixer. I have it on like 2, so pretty low, for like 7 minutes. And then I'll also hand knead it on the counter just a few times before I put it in the bowl. This is what it's looking like now that it's done kneading in the KitchenAid. Okay, now I'm just gonna put it out onto some of this flour and just knead it by hand for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna place it in this bowl. So once you've kneaded it a few times, I'm gonna throw it in this bowl that I've coated with some Pam, and then you just flip it so that all of the dough has some oil on it. And then you cover it with like a damp towel, and I'm gonna stick it in the oven. So I preheated the oven to like 200, and then I turned it off, and then I put it in there to rise, because you want it to rise in a warm place. That's very, very important, because it will not rise very well if it's not a warm place. And if it's warm outside where you live and humid, that's even better. Okay. It is risen, and this is what it looks like after it's risen. You can see it's like it's doubled in size basically. It takes about an hour. So once it does that, you're gonna put more flour down, and then you kind of just punch it down like that. And then you are gonna knead it for a few minutes, and then we're gonna divide it in half, and then I'm gonna put it in, and I'm gonna form it into a loaf shape, and then we're gonna put it in these loaf pans. Now here is where I have made mistakes before. It needs to rise for 30 minutes, but this time do not put a cloth over the top. If you do, the cloth will stick to the dough, and once you pull the cloth off, it will deflate your dough, and it'll make for an awful tasting loaf of bread. Okay, so don't do that. I've done that so many times, I can't even count, and messed up the whole thing. So you just want to put these in a warm place, just like this, and they're gonna rise. You want them to come to either see, this is a really big loaf pan, so if you're using a normal size loaf pan, which is about like this size, then you'll want it to come about 1 inch over the top of this pan. But this is a big one, so I'll probably let it just come to like level with the pan. But you basically want it to double in size again, and that takes about 30 minutes, and then you're ready to bake it. These loaves, these two are ready to bake. This one and this one. This one is not ready yet. I just put that one in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and bake these 4 loaves on 350 for about 30 to 45 minutes until they're like golden brown on the top. These are my first 4 loaves. I'm not super happy with how these turned out because I just don't like these square non-stick pans. So I think for the rest of them, I'm gonna use the regular loaf type of pans because it just makes a lot prettier loaf. So this one's all done. Isn't she pretty? I've already buttered the top, so that's what you want to do when they come out of the oven and they cool just a little bit. You just dump them out onto a towel on the counter, and then you just brush the top with some melted butter. And this just gives it a really pretty, like, shine, and it tastes really good on there too. So after I do all of this, after I bake them all and butter them all, I'm gonna let them cool completely, and then I'm gonna wrap them really, really good with plastic wrap. Like I usually double layer, and then I'm gonna pop them in the freezer. And they're good for a really, really long time. I've never waited like longer than like a month to eat them, but they've always been amazing when I pull them out. They still taste like they did like the first day you baked them. So I hope that helps. I hope you guys will try this. It's very simple to do. It is time consuming, but it is simple. So if you do decide to do this, tag me in it and let me know how it turns out.